Welcome to my channel. My name is Man the Wall. I talk about history, politics, movies, music, and whatever else I feel like that day. And welcome to a new segment on this channel called Matthew's Movie Reviews, where I review blockbuster movies both new and old. So, you can tell a lot about a time period by the historical figures they tend to look back on and idealize. In the 1980s, as Reaganite neoliberalism reigned supreme, Calvin Coolidge, a previously forgotten president, became idolized by a new generation of conservatives and neoliberals. And in 2021, with several high-profile cases of police brutality facing massive, and righteous, protest and more Americans than ever being aware of the systemic racism that continues to permeate our society, one group of historical figures we increasingly seem to admire are the Black Panthers, a revolutionary progressive socialist movement that popped up in the late 60s that fought against police brutality and racial injustice. Not everything they did was perfect, obviously, but they did a lot of undeniable good in their communities, and were murdered unjustly. So much so that in our current climate, Warner Brothers decided to give the Black Panthers their own movie, released during Black History Month. A movie that, since its release in theaters and on HBO Max, has garnered vast critical acclaim, with many people declaring it one of the best films of the year so far. So, what do I think about it? Well, I like it. I mean, it's not my favorite movie in the world or anything, but I can see why it's garnered so much acclaim. The highlight is, for me at least, Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton. Kaluuya has already established himself as one of the most demanded and talented actors of color in the business, and in my view, this is the performance that will make him a star. Or at the very least it would, if not for the fact that we can't go to movie theaters without facing the threat of contracting a potentially life-threatening virus. He manages to capture Hampton as both the well-spoken, invigorating, and powerful revolutionary, and also the kind-hearted, sensitive father-to-be. And while he's the standout performer, he's not the only great one here. Jesse Plemons gives an excellent performance as an FBI agent who you do oddly feel some level of sympathy for despite the terrible things he's doing, and, well, some of the terrible stuff he believes. And Martin Sheen is chilling as infamous FBI director J. Edgar Hoover, who this film basically decides just to portray as a towering, larger-than-life supervillain, which is basically what he deserves. However, as much as I was impressed with their performances, I found Lakeith Stanfield and Dominic Fishback, while not terrible by any means, not as good as they could have been, particularly Fishback, whose emotional conflict over what happens now that she has a baby inside of her feels like it should come off as more important than it actually is. Plot-wise, I felt as if the film did have some slight pacing issues. The introduction and the ending are both very strong, but the middle drags a little bit. I felt as if more time could have been given to establishing who O'Neill and Fred Hampton were, especially given the fact that this is a story that a lot of audiences, particularly non-African-American audiences, aren't really familiar with. But with all of that being established in the first 10 minutes or so, and the killing of Fred Hampton and the scenes following being established in roughly the last 10 minutes, and no, that's not a spoiler, he's been dead for over 50 years, the rest of the film does kind of meander. Now granted, a lot of that meandering consists of a collection of scenes that are very powerful, from Stanfield's interaction with Plemons, to Kaluuya's interactions with everyone from gang members to the Young Patriots to the Panthers themselves, to the absolutely chilling interactions between Martin Sheen and Jesse Plemons that I dare not spoil. And I also like that, despite this coming from a big-name Hollywood studio, the ideology of the Panthers isn't sugar-coated at all. They're presented as they were, revolutionary, Marxist-Leninist leading socialists. And while I might not be the biggest fan of that ideology in the world, I'm glad that the filmmakers were honest in that portrayal, rather than just showing the Panthers as mere reformist, left-leaning freedom fighters. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel like the film could have maybe been structured a bit better, with less time being dedicated to the intricacies of O'Neill's infiltration into the Black Panther Party, and a more solid focus on one major character, whether it be O'Neill or Hampton. But that is kind of nitpicking. For what it's worth, Judas and the Black Messiah is a pretty good movie, a powerful retelling of a very important story in American history that, up until now, hasn't really been on the big screen. 7 out of 10, definitely recommend you see it if you have HBO Max, and if you don't have HBO Max, go buy HBO Max, because Batman the Animated Series is on it, and that is the greatest TV show of all time. But after you're done with that, maybe give this a viewing too.